Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Enlightened Entrepreneur. And once again, thank you for joining us in this episode of where you're going to be learning something new, or if it's not new to you, it's something that you may need to be reminded of. And today, my guest is one special guest that I'm going to let her introduce herself in a moment. But the title of our interview is Starting Your Own Business. Critical skills every business owner needs to have and develop for you to succeed. Now with me is a lady called Joanna Finney. Now, Joanna, thank you for joining us.
Sure, it's great to be here.
Excellent. And once again, really appreciate you taking your time from your very busy schedule to share some of the things you have learned along the journey, and you've been in business for a while now, that you're prepared to give over to others. To get us started, Joanna, and I know our audience would love to know who you are, your experience, and what you've done in the past, so that they can relate better to you. So can you tell us, your background?
Yes, my background is in entertainment and journalism, communications, and media, and electronic media.
Right.
And I started my own business about 2 years ago, as a independent full-service agent. So not a speakers bureau, not an entertainment agent, but kind of a combination of the two that I created myself and have been doing ever since, and can't imagine doing anything else.
Incredible. So how long were you in the entertainment industry, Joanna?
About 6 years. I worked out there in Los Angeles for, big time movie producers, directors, agents, and managers. And I really, kind of jumped around as far as my jobs went, because there wasn't anything that I was so passionate about that I wanted to stay. So I kind of jumped around and got a, full experience on every end of the spectrum as far as entertainment goes. And eventually just decided I was close to my dream, or, my passion. I didn't quite know what my passion was, but I knew that wasn't it. And that's kind of, in a very short story, what led me to create my own business.
Incredible. Just taking you back to those 6 years in the entertainment industry, Joanna, what were some of the things that you learned and which have become relevant into your business today?
Well, I learned how to have extremely thick skin. I learned that it doesn't matter if you've interned before, if you've been an assistant before. No job is too small, and you should never ever judge a book by its cover. And I know it's all about having connections and networks, but the people that truly helped me along the way were those that you would never ever expect. I like to compare it to, I was walking down a hallway and the janitor was the one who helped me, as opposed to the principal. And that couldn't be more true with my background and my story and my path.
Incredible. I love what you said there, that no job is too small. And I find that to be true as well, even in entrepreneur, when you're running your own business. There isn't any job that is too small to do that. Now, moving from being an employee, I assume you were an employee when you were working within the entertainment industry. Is that so?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, moving from that environment into a business owner environment, what sort of changes had to take place?
Oh, gosh, I lost my IT department.
Right. Okay.
That was probably the biggest, big, I guess, red flag and awakening as far as, starting my own business was, oh, gosh, I have to figure out how to, create my own little website. Right. And if I have something happen, I don't have a phone to pick up and call it, press star and, get the department downstairs to come help me.
Right.
So those have been really challenging, I would say.
Okay. Yes, I actually know exactly what you talk about. All of a sudden you discover that, this service actually costs a lot of money to have someone do that for you.
Exactly. I always joke, instead of teaching cursive in schools, they should have taught coding.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And I hear that as well from many clients of mine here. That's why many of them end up using outsourcing, because outsourcing is an alternative way of getting the same quality of service, but at an affordable price, because they then think, gosh, I can't pay somebody £17, if you are here in England, to do my website.
Right.
And because the budget is still tight in those early days. How did you deal with that anyway? Suppose one of our audiences in those shoes, they've just moved from the corporate world and they're entering into the entrepreneurship, and they discover there is no IT department. How can they go about having the same results without the big budget?
Well, if you're like me, well, it depends on what your business is. For me, my website's important, but it operates more as a landing page. But then I do, my media sections and my social media and Twitter and Instagram and whatnot. It's extremely important as far as promoting my clients. But my whole, what I do is I like to, if you come to my website, I want to bounce you back off as soon as possible to my clients, which has really been the way I've operated and grown my Twitter following, which I'm extremely proud of. Because I didn't have any background in, growth hacking or, SEO and social media. I literally learned as I go. So with that said, that's kind of how I learned to do the website stuff. It was a lot of reading, a lot of forums, a lot of trial and error, and not trying to be like all, bigger than I am, and not trying to necessarily, be a souped up fancy site. I didn't need, all that hoopla. Just for me, it was, okay, let me perfect the very basics and see what happens. And that's kind of how I operate with my social media is, and I've learned a lot, because ultimately when you are a startup or an entrepreneur, you've got yourself. So, the more you know, and the more you're educated on and can take care of yourself, then obviously the better off you'll be in the long run.
Absolutely, absolutely. In the beginning, as an entrepreneur, if you're listening, you just have to do everything. One of my friends put it this way: they say, "Oh, you are a real CEO," and I thought, "What is that?" And he said, "Oh, chief of everything."
Right. So true.
And then, as you know, the little piece of each department that you're developing, particularly the marketing, the sales, the production, and the communication, and all the internal things of your business. When you then hire somebody to do that, you're not completely out of touch. You know what needs to happen, although not so much in detail. So I can understand where you're coming from. But let me take you back to those days, early days. Really, other than noticing that your IT department is gone, what other major changes happened? Maybe mindset, or where you were, or anything related to your business.
I knew that I wanted to be in charge of something that motivated me to get up. And one of the things out in entertainment, or, in any business really, I always had these friends or these colleagues or acquaintances, who always seemed, and they came across, and truly, I believe it was very genuine, that they truly loved what they did, and they loved their boss, and they loved their coworkers. But for myself, I never had that experience. I wanted to so badly. I wanted to love what I was doing, or I wanted to love the people I was working with, but it always seemed that I was, underneath the middleman, or there was no room to grow because there was always, 5 people ahead that had been there forever. So I was, every job I went to, there was that roadblock. So I knew I could do what I, in my mind, was kind of already doing, but finding these people who inspired me, because I never wanted to be like the people I saw that when they reach their 40s or 50s, they've got, on paper, or when you say it out loud, it sounds like a really eloquent and awesome job, and they're like so in the know and they're so cool, but they all hated their, lives, or they just seemed miserable all the time, or they were just like, oh, like always complaining. And literally I could say every department or every place I worked at, it just kind of felt like that was the one consistency, I guess you could say. And I didn't want to be that way. And life's too short. So I kind of took my skill sets and knew I could learn those that I didn't have, and decided to create a business where I could be motivated by people that really just inspire me, that I want to therefore, inform others about, because I think they're so unique and interesting. And that's kind of been my mindset as far as, pitching my clients.
Incredible. I love what you say there, that you saw something that you did not like in all those departments you were going, even though people had the great titles and all that, but they hated what they were doing.
Right.
Which really is what happens among a lot of people, really over 70% of people, from what I hear from other entrepreneurs, that they didn't like that. So, hearing it from you, you're not an exception. How did you change your mindset? Because it's a different ball game when you an employee and then you become an entrepreneur. How did you change your mindset?
I wouldn't say I changed it. I just, I've always been kind of hot-headed, I guess you could say, or never been afraid to speak my mind.
Right.
Maybe that's gotten me in trouble or maybe not, but I don't know if I ever changed my mindset. I just, I never went to business school. So it was like, oh, how am I going to start a business if I don't have, business school background, or, oh, what's a business plan? But the reality is, with this day and age and social media and technology rapidly, sounding off every 5 seconds, to sit down and put together a 100-page or 50-page business plan is kind of, monotonous, if you will. So I just knew, okay, here's what I want to do. I know technology, we use it every day. I kind of have been doing this, as an assistant level or, executive assistant level. So how could it really be any different? So my biggest mindset was I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And so it was kind of like, well, let's just see what happens. And I'll give myself, 5 years. And obviously in my mind, if I were still sitting here and I hadn't seen any change or transition from when I first started, I'd be, definitely reevaluating what I'm doing. But for me, the biggest thing was I've met so many, and I'm sure you can relate to it, so many people who say they want to do something, or they all talk about all these things they're going to do and how awesome it's going to be. But that's all they do is talk, and it never gets, up and running. And so for me, my biggest thing was, okay, I'm saying I'm going to, to my first client, I said, if you come with me and you trust me to do this, I will have my business up and running. You'll see my website up in 3 weeks. And, they wrote back saying they'd love to come on board. And so therefore I knew, okay, for them to take me seriously, I need to get this up in 3 weeks. And therefore they can trust my word. They can trust I'm going to do it, get it done, and my, seriousness. And so for me, that was, I guess my mindset was, okay, here we go. I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to figure it out in 3 weeks. And I did. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it, to me, that was extremely important. So I guess just my mindset became delivering and making sure I delivered.
Incredible. Again, one thing I like about you is you just go out there and make it happen.
Exactly.
Incredible. Let's talk about how you got your first client.
Yeah. So like I said, my background was in entertainment. I worked on the talent side. So I was used to, booking travel or booking hair and makeup or booking appearances or, sending out casting, and auditions for actors, and those sorts of things. And so I was used to working with talent. I have siblings who are medical doctors. So nothing is, if you have all the money in the world, if I met Queen Elizabeth, I don't think that I would be intimidated, to be honest, just because I rode the elevator by myself with Robert Redford. And ever since then, I was like, I said, can you please push the lobby button? Because we're all just people, right? So that said, I then went to work at a third-party kind of speakers bureau, which is where I was also, on the talent side. So my job there was to work with the talent and find out if people were interested in doing speaking engagements, and if so, if they had, a range or an ideal honorarium they usually received, and kind of just build the database. So I was operating a lot with potential speakers or the talent.
Right.
They weren't exclusive clients by any means, so it wasn't like I was poaching off of anything. But a lot of these, I don't know if you've ever worked with the speaker bureau, but a lot of times they just pitch the same 10 speakers. So here I was it's like if you're going to find the Beatles, or you love the Beatles, but you want to find another band.
That's
and
right.
yet they're still pitching the Beatles. So here I was getting a bunch of, new bands, and, let's say just the Paul of the Beatles, or, the Lennon of the Beatles. And they too had so much to offer, and they were so amazing and unique, and would be great suggestions for certain events and organizations. Well, and it just kind of, they never got to the forefront. No one ever pitched them. So I was like really inspired by them and just kept in contact. And, there's a few people that you come into contact with as you go about in your life, and, some stay with you, or some you're like, wow, that person was really interesting. So when I quit that day, I emailed, the two people that I initially, immediately popped into my head that I was like, I really want to work with them, because nothing's happening here and I can make so much more happen for them. And I truly have.
Incredible. Joanna, I'm looking at some of the questions I have here for you. And you seem to have covered most of them already. With what you're doing now, if you were to start all over again, what would you do differently?
Oh man, what would I do differently? Probably nothing. If I weren't seeing successes, then I would definitely say, oh man, I would do this and this and this. But I mean, everything I've done that I didn't mean to do or shouldn't have done or wanted to do more of is really just been a learning curve, and trial and error.
Right.
Maybe I wouldn't have been so afraid to start, social media or to try Twitter. But there's not really anything I could think of that I wouldn't do. Maybe ignore I hated when I would reach out to people and then they just offer me their unsolicited advice about how my website needed to show my clients or blah, 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 blah. But I knew in my mind, my vision. And my vision was I didn't want to be like a speakers bureau that just has all these clients and information that's information overload. But right. I also didn't want to be, an entertainment agency. So I stuck to my guns with the vision I had for my site. And now it's just so funny because, sometimes even those people in the beginning who offered me that advice, now they'll from time to time chime in or email me and say, hey, what's going on in the events? And I'm just, I just kind of laugh internally on the inside.
Right. I like that. Still on that, what would you do more of?
What would I do more of? I would do more promotion and research. But, like I said, I spend so many, I'll spend over 48 hours sometimes just getting lost in researching events and promoting and doing the PR. Or, one thing I'm very different with my pitches is that I don't know if you've ever received or seen emails where, an agency or a bureau, they'll email out, to their email list saying, oh, if you're looking for a speaker for this event, check out our roster. And, you'll click on it. It'll be just a bunch of names and blah, blah, blah. Well, one thing I did to really separate myself from those emails and from typical agencies was I only pitch one client per email. And
right.
So if I could do more of, I would find even more events per my clients, because, if I'm drafting 200 emails a day or a week and you break it down between, 10 emails, that's only still about 20 emails a client, right?
Right. Incredible.
If I did the math right.
It sounds like you're doing your math right away.
I'm sorry?
Sounds like you were doing your math Okay, let's jump on to the technical skills, Joanna. As a business owner, you're talking to other business owners in our audience. who getting started on this journey, just maybe a little bit behind you, what skills do they need to develop if they're going to be in this game for a long time?
They need to develop the mindset that it doesn't matter, like they have nothing to lose, and you need to develop your own identity. So just because, these things are trending or these are the ways to grow your business per, a little icon or per a Pinterest, site you click on, or, a graphic, it doesn't mean that's the only way. So figure out, kind of what it is that you enjoy doing and grow from there and try, trial and error. Consistency is key. I mean, I would say definitely consistency. For me, transparency is huge. And I would say just, if you believe you can do it and you are consistent and you are constantly wanting to learn more, then you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And one thing I do daily while I'm working is I always have on various, business podcasts where I can be sure to learn, and podcast meaning ones that I can learn from as far as things I need to better myself on. So I listen to a lot of, like growth hacking podcasts or, social media and things like that I wasn't as, knowledgeable or, well skilled on, but when I first started, that have really benefited me in my business. And so I'm very proud of that, but I'm by no means an expert in social media yet.
Incredible. I love what you said about developing your own identity. How have you gone about it yourself?
I'm sorry?
If there are individuals in our audience today, they want to learn on developing their own identity in their business, what can they do?
Yes, I mean, the best example I can give you is out in Hollywood. A lot of times writers of screenplays, you'll read their screenplay, but then in the screenplay, they'll have themselves, cast as the main character. But oftentimes if these writers had just gotten out of their own way, meaning if they wrote the screenplay and it was a great screenplay, but then sell your screenplay and let yourself not be the main character, because you don't need that, like get out of your own way. And so many times these screenplays wouldn't sell because these writers were so gung-ho and, stubborn in the sense that they were only going to let it sell if they got to be, Bobby. But if they had just removed themselves as Bobby and let themselves be listed as, and just been the writer, they would have, who knows what would have happened. And so the same thing can be applied to an entrepreneur. If you're trying to create a startup, I see so many times people who are a business owner, but then they're also a speaker. And then they, and it really depends on what your platform is, what it is you do, what your short and long-term goals are. But for example, for myself, I knew I never wanted to be a speaker. I never wanted to be in the limelight. I never tried my hand at acting. I never tried my hand in in entertainment, except for behind the scenes, because I know that about myself. So for me, I knew I wouldn't get in my own way. And so it's been all about my company and my clients. And that has really, benefited myself and my business. But by my business, I mean my clients. And that is how I'm able to grow my following and gauge my audience and get interest and inquiries and book events, because it's not, you don't go to my website and see all about me. You see my business and then you click on myself and it's all about my clients. And the content just speaks for itself. And so it's very interesting content, and my clients are very interesting, and the things they're doing are extremely relevant, and it just kind of, takes care of itself in that way. But that would be my biggest thing, is figure out what it is you really want to do and how you want to be, how you want to portray yourself, but also how you want others to, perceive you. I had a phone call the other day with a woman, and she had reached out to me about speaking, but then she said she wasn't ready to be a speaker. She didn't want to be on camera, but she wanted to speak. And it was an hour wasted of my time, because this woman had no clue what she was even talking about. I had to send her a link and said, please go review this and possibly get back to me in a month or so, because it was just, so those kinds of things. I would say figure out who you are and who you want to be,
right?
Before you try to be everything and nothing.
Absolutely. If you try everything in the beginning, you won't get anywhere.
Right, exactly.
Yes. You spoke about transparency as one of those things which business owner need to develop. Can you share more on that?
I'm sorry, on which one?
Transparency.
Oh, yes. Just being open, like being real, providing more information than not, but also, for example, I've worked with places that had, 2 locations. And let's say they had one of their office locations listed in Atlanta. And then let's say they had another office location listed in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Right.
Here in the United States. Well, more likely than not, those 2 places don't, if you see something like that, it just signals a red flag, because it's just kind of like, that's kind of strange. Most of the times you see places like an LA office or a New York office or an Atlanta office and a Nashville office, if you have more than one office. So just noticing things like that. So you wouldn't go to my website and see Nashville and, Charleston, South Carolina. So just being legit and being who you say you are, and not hiding behind, the internet, like with anybody on, as people that catfish. And, there are plenty of people who say they have these businesses and not, where, if you go to a website and you click on a link, it just kind of takes you around to these clickable links, but there's never really any content. So I would say, if you are doing business or potentially doing business with others online, click around their site before you just get, carried away and looking at a beautiful homepage. Really look at the content they have there. If they say they're a speaker, okay, what do they speak about? Or they, if they say they're a, marketer, marketing expert, or can grow your business, okay, well, check out their business. It's like, I always think it's interesting when people do say they are marketing experts or, social media experts, and then you go to their own stuff and they've only got, 1,000 followers or 100 followers. It's like a nutritionist who weighs, 500 pounds.
Okay. Joanna, I know there's some people in the audience today who would love to either work with or, maybe use some of your services. Could you tell us what you do and how people can get in touch with you?
Where they can find me?
Correct.
Yeah, they can go to my website, which is www.1126talent.com. I'm extremely active on my Twitter, which is the handle 11 spelled out, ELEVEN 26 talent, as well as Instagram, same handle. Any of those sites, I don't usually accept, unsolicited, pitches or information, but I'm always open to learning about people. I would love to talk to someone who is finding the cure for cancer as a client. I would love to, anyone who has a really unique story. So, I'm always open to learning and, introducing myself and what I do to others. And if they happen to be really awesome or unique, then, who knows what could happen.
Absolutely. And what do you do for your clients?
I do PR. I find them speaking engagements. I, book public appearances, interviews, radio. Anything you need, I pretty much do. And if I haven't done it, I'm on my way.
That's beautiful. Awesome. Now, as we come toward the end of our time together, Joanna, is there anything regarding what you do that you feel you can share more, or that I haven't asked you about?
No, I can't think of anything.
Incredible. Now, as parting words, do you have any special words for those who maybe struggling, or those who seem to have stagnated?
If you want to do it, but don't sit there and say you want to do it. And you'll be able to do it if you, like I said, if you get out of your own way. So if you can get, move your fear out of your own way, you're your only, you're your only thing keeping you from doing it.
Absolutely. And there's nothing to lose, like you've been saying all along.
Right. And if it doesn't work out, there'll always be something else you can fall back on. I mean, you will always figure it out. If you've made it this far and you've figured out life, so, you know, in your, however old you are, 20, 30 years, and you're still alive and kicking, and you got 2 feet on the ground, then you'll continue to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Make your plan, no plan, and just see what happens.
Absolutely. And just follow it through and listen to this audio podcast. You will be amazed at what you'll learn. Well, with that said, thank you so much, Joanna, for a great interview.
Thank you.
I'm sure all business owners in our audience have a much clearer understanding of the skills they need to develop.
Wonderful. It's been fun.
Excellent. Once again, thank you for listening. And any questions that you may have regarding what Joanna does, go to her website, which is www.1126talents.com. Alternatively, you can find her on Twitter. Joanna, what is your Twitter handle?
11 ELEVEN 26 talent.
Awesome. There you have it. Once again, thanks, Joanna, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much.
Incredible. And with that said, if you've got any outsourcing needs, ladies and gentlemen, do visit our website, which is alloutsourcingsolutions.com, and send us an email there. With that said, have a great day, everyone.